All right. Hey, y'all. We are live on the Facebooks. We're going out to YouTube and on Media and Marketing Podcast. Jan here once again, brand new week, Monday. And I'm going to switch over to the screen here because I got something really cool to show you here today. And this is going to be about what I call the 4 essential steps to results-driven SEO keyword research. Wow, that is a mouthful. But hey, it's Monday, so we can start out with that, right? We're very excited over here because we have a lot going on actually this week in general, but excited about sharing these posts and these broadcasts with you, and especially when it comes to the different ways in which you can drive traffic. And SEO is, of course, one of the cornerstones of your marketing channels or your marketing strategies. Using basically your business goals to map out using SEO, well, that is a smart way to go. Clearly, of course, you listener here, or if you're watching, the viewer here, understand what SEO is at its basic nature, which is, of course, about keywords and contents and of course, links, especially backlinks, a big part of the Google algo. But here's the next question. Have you actually thought about the process and what's needed, to get SEO off the ground? Well, in a previous broadcast, I talked about the various business goals and marketing strategies that you have to have in play to really map out your entire, series of steps and milestones to reach your goals. But we didn't dig into too much on the keyword research side, which is a pillar, a central pillar, a core pillar, if you will, of making sure that your SEO is going to work ongoing. And when we talk about keyword research, it's also important to note that this is not a one and done thing. You don't do this research once and you're done. It's an ongoing exercise. And what's cool here is if you've implemented analytics correctly and also using paid search, so Google AdWords, right, Google Ads, you can actually continually mine this data through what's called the search terms report in Google Ads, but also the Google Webmaster Tools area, which is Google Search Console now, and really pull out not only valuable data, but for SEO, keywords that you actually might be ranked on page 2 for, that you can easily integrate into existing pages that you can elevate and lift, both by external linking, on-page factors, and self-ranking through internal link structures. But that's a lot more than I wanted to get into today, just to kind of give you a top-level view, though. Very powerful to use these, internal websites that you have, that you basically own, and these internal processes to self-mine data and enhance existing traffic points and really build more conversions and leads into your business. Because ultimately, that's what we want. I talked about that in the previous broadcast a couple of episodes ago, about really all of this is for naught if you don't have a clear goal and a strategy mapped out. So what we're seeing here today is basically the 4 steps. And if you are looking at this live or on YouTube, thank you again for watching. I'm going to map this out for you as you're listening here through your drive or jog or whatever else you're doing. Now, before I continue, of course, a small pitch here. If you want to check us out and see if we can help you, just go to www.chaosmap.com. I put that up on the screen there, chaosmap.com, and happy to jump on for a quick call there, see if we can help you, at least get you some guidance. And if you're further along, there's certainly many things we can do to elevate what's already working for you. All right, so let's dig in. Number 1, step 1 here. You have to determine what the search demand looks like, meaning the search demand curve, right? So you may have, a list of keywords that you feel are appropriate for your business. And certainly if you've mapped this out early on, you probably have some proof points. If you're earlier on in this, you need to essentially get an understanding of what that looks like. So for a particular keyword, although it might be very relevant to your business, if there's 10 searches a month for that, that's not going to be super valuable. Now, I should put a caveat here. If you have a lot of these, what we call long tail keyword phrases, right? 3, 4, 5, 6 words or more, they will typically have low volume, right, in terms of that search volume, but they can be very targeted. And if you couple those with paid search, you can really have a nice little engine that runs in the back end for hundreds of these, right? So I'm not sort of trying to minimize the fact that if one phrase has 10 searches, you should ignore, but you need to compile this. And that's what we really start to do here in this step one is, what do the search demand curve look like for your market, for your universe, and also specifically as you start to look at keywords? And one way you can look at sort of a very top level aggregate for this is Google Trends. Google Trends gives you, of course, the ability to look at more recent data, 12-month span, etc. You can drill into local, certainly global as well. And so google.com/trends, a great way to start. We're going to get into some of the tactics a little bit later, and I'm going to have a follow-up broadcast where I actually show you some of these in more actual sort of step-by-step using tools, etc. But I want you to sort of get familiar with the overall process in today's presentation. So number one, get an understanding of the volume for your business and for your market. So that's number one, the keyword demand. Number two, here's where we're drilling a little further, right? So if you understand that you have good volumes and you have start to sort of think about segmentation of those keyword groups, et cetera, well, what is the intent behind those keywords, right? So we talk about commercially driven intent keywords, right? I mean, anything with the word buy in it or purchase or looking for could be kind of considered more commerce driven, right? Well, it's also important to think about this early on, because ultimately, as I said, we want to drive the right traffic, the buyer traffic, the highly intent-driven folks. And so in step two, that's where we really start to kind of dive into some of the tools like Keyword Planner. That's one of the tools that you can use for this, although it's more driven towards, paid media. It can be a great place to start. In fact, we use it as a number of different tool sets. And you can get that obviously inside the Google tool set by going to Google Keyword Planner inside Google Ads there, and start to determine what is the intent behind this. And it goes beyond just simply pulling out lists here. You will also go out and manually search into Google and see what pops up. For instance, if you find a group of keywords that seem to have a very high commercial intent for you, that's very appropriate for you and your market, and you type it into Google and you see 0 ads or just 1 or 2, maybe it's not as commercially viable as you thought, right? So there's potentially a lot of research that needs to go on here, depending on the scope of your project, right? So if you just have 1 or 2 keywords you're trying to rank for, there's going to be less work versus, hundreds of them, right? So we work on different scopes here in this regard. You can check us out at chaosmap.com, chaosmap.com if you'd like. But here in step two, you're really starting to kind of think about, how can I map this to my overall intent? So the first one was really, yes, I've determined I have volumes here. It is appropriate. I'm now diving in and determining that we do have stronger intent through these keyword selections. And then we move into step three. This is where we move into what we call keyword nominations. So the first one was sort of the selections area. This is now the nominations area. This is where we truly dig into. Remember, we talked about mapping out your marketing goals, your sales goals, and ultimately your digital marketing goals, really in a sort of full 360 view. Well, in step three here, now you really want to nominate out the top keywords that you are going to go after that have the highest ROI and goals potentials. And so that's what I'd like you to think about in step three. If you have done 1 and 2 correctly and you feel like you've done a good job there, you should really be able to map out the ROI driven keywords and nominating those. And here's where you also are going to pull out typically, almost like the traditional funnel. You'll start out with a higher number of keyword selections and choices at the top, and you start filtering and filtering and filtering. And you come out with your keywords that have ROI-driven goals. Now, I should also add here, the competitor market comes into play, right? So if you're just, I'm going to go for those, not considering the competitiveness of those, well, that's not going to be useful, right? Because now you're going to work really hard to try and rank those and get seen for those. where you could have gone for something that is a little bit less sort of, I don't want to say less commercially intent driven, but there is flavors of that, right? So you actually are still on the path of ROI, but they're not as competitive as 6 months trying to to rank something when you can actually choose a little bit less trafficked set of keywords, but also something that is perhaps not sort of as straight as to, from point A to point B in terms of that e-commerce driven selection. So think about that as you do it. And again, I'm sort of giving you a top level views on this. I realize that there's definitely a more behind the scenes aspect to this, and we're going to talk about that in another broadcast. But for you to think about this at this level, it's very useful, because you'll be able to say, okay, here's my keyword demand from the sort of overall keyword volumes, dissection or research, right? Then you have the actual more intent-driven keywords that are coming into play. Now you've pulled out more the ROI-driven keywords, right? And again, when I say that these are nominations, basically these are the ones that you're going for, right? Now you're going to adjust this as you sort of move forward, because some of these are just going to be too hard to rank for, right? And I'm going to show you different ways that you can find out how to rank for these, how competitive they are. And that's going to be very helpful. That's in a future broadcast coming up later this week. But finally, here is a big one. So now you've gone through step 1, 2, and 3, right? So you got the demand, you got the intent, you got the more drill down into the ROI specific to your goals. Step 4 is about mapping the gaps and adding keywords essentially to a URL map, meaning your existing pages. If you're brand new, of course, then you're going to do the same thing. But very often what we see is there's a whole portion of keywords that are not mapped into existing pages that are already ranked. And if you recall, I talked about the idea that you're ranked on page 2 for a number of keywords. Here's a perfect example of you looking at the existing keyword map for your existing pages that are already working, and then adding a new pool of keywords and really themes. Back in the day, I started doing SEO back in, let's see here. I really didn't think of it as SEO, but it was back in 1996 doing web app stuff. In 2005, 2006 is when I really started thinking about it in terms of SEO. But, here's where, it used to be more about, just stuff keywords on the page. If you want to be sneaky, put keywords that have a white text on white background and try and sort of be spammy about this, right? And there's the whole notion of black hat SEO, which is, goes against the quote unquote Google's, policies and standards. That still exists today, of course. Gray hat SEO being somewhere in the middle. White hat SEO is the appropriate way, sort of standardized way of doing it. But of course, a quick discussion here often happens as well. Who's to say who's right here? Google is providing services. We as SEOs, we can do anything we want. And that is absolutely true. It's just a question of risk here. But this is not about black hat or gray or white. We're simply going sort of standard in this way of discussion, which leans towards white, I realize. And adding keywords to a page is not bad. But if you're just stuffing keywords, now you're in this gray area, right? You're not being very cool about it, but you're also not being smart about it. So in this step 4, while you have the keyword page URL map and you understand gaps, et cetera, you also need to do, sort of a theming research here. Like what topics are you discussing? Adding keywords, as I say, will have some lift, but adding more content using keywords in a more natural way is where you're really going to get a boost, right? And that could be adding to an existing page. And it can also be, hey, we find that we have a number of pages that are not addressing the keywords we'd like. We also are not addressing the topics that our audience are asking about, our searchers essentially, that we know a lot about, that we can provide value for. Well, then you need to do that as well, right? So you can easily see how SEO gets involved quite quickly, and it's not overnight. SEO for some of the more sort of competitive terms, will take weeks and typically months, If you want to rank for, let's see, wedding shoes, or what's a popular term like There's, baby clothes, right? Let's just use that for a second. Well, not only is that not a great term, right? It's just way too broad. It's way too competitive. It's not something that you'll spend money and time on to try and rank for because it will take forever. Well, you don't need to. You can be smart about this. That's an example of where you now can go back and find out, what's the keyword volume within that sort of niche, if you will. What is the intent within those keywords for the baby clothes, right? And what are the nominations that are more directly related to ROI and goals throughout that situation? And of course, here are they actually available as pages on your site? And of course, when we talk about baby clothes, we also talk about an e-commerce site versus a more general sort of perhaps services or lead gen approach, although those ultimately turn into leads that are into buyers. But, it's going to be about expanding that particular pool of keywords into content that the users are looking for, not just spamming or allocating keywords and just spewing them all over a page, right? But we see a lot of that too still, right? We'd think that somebody would actually get this, right? But the truth is there's a lot of websites out there, a lot of business owners and webmasters, and a lot of hearsay and a lot of forums and groups and, places, blogs, etc., that talk about these somewhat old standards. And I'd like to try and help you break through some of this here with these broadcasts. So I hope this has been helpful here, coming to you live once again here on a fine Monday. And if you'd like to get an audit, actually, we are doing that right now. We'll do an audit for you at chaosmap.com. chaosmap.com. I'm putting it up on the screen there if you'd like to see that. And in general, just thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And if you'd like to give a review on the Media and Marketing Podcast, we'd love it. I'd certainly love it. Helps everybody in the community, more visibility, more traction, more opportunity for growth. And can't wait to have you come back to the next one tomorrow. So with that, remember the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps for keyword research for SEO, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Take it easy.